The basis of this project is formed from the answers of 10 anonymous interviews. The subjects were 10 females, all new to the University of Pittsburgh's Oakland campus. The questions were on the topics of sexual harassment, sexual assault, and sexism. Oftentimes, especially coming to a big city like Pittsburgh, we get faced with many challenges, new experiences, and different actions. I was investigating how these topics came into play. In the first round of the interview, I asked very general questions, such as, to your recollection, have you experienced sexual harassment or assault on campus? How has sexism affected your life while on campus? Have you been demeaned for being a female? The list goes on and on. The results came as a shock to me. Only 2 out of 10 subjects said they had been assaulted and harassed sexually, while only 3 had faced sexism. The following quotes were the most notable answers.
It just hasn't happened.
No, I know it hasn't.
I can tell you definitively that I have been sexually assaulted.
What even is sexual harassment?
You consent and you say yes, but you still feel uncomfortable. Is that sexual assault? I don't think so.
What terrifying responses! More than half of the subjects were unsure of the definitions for each topic. Regardless, they were told to answer the question to the best of their ability. It is overwhelmingly eye-opening to me that we live in a culture that does not teach about harassment or assault or sexism.
What even is sexual harassment?
The problem isn't that women aren't educated. The problem is that males do these demeaning and terrible actions so frequently that the female has learned to accept or suppress them. Or rather, females are taught to see these actions and slurs and demoralizing wrongdoings as acceptable behaviors because they happen so often. In the second round of questioning, I asked about the same topics but gave examples of what each might encompass. Some of the general examples given included, has anyone told you you were too pretty or too feminine to do a task? Have you been looked down upon because you're a female? Or have you been looked down upon because of your intended major? Have you been expected to give something in return to a man after going on a date or hanging out or even just having dinner? Have you been followed, cornered, stalked, chased, etc.? Along with the examples that I gave, I also gave the definitions from Merriam-Webster's Dictionary of sexual harassment, assault, and sexism. Sexual harassment is defined as uninvited and unwelcome verbal or physical behavior of a sexual nature, especially by a person in authority, toward a subordinate, as an employee or student. Sexism is defined as prejudice or discrimination based on sex, especially discrimination against women, or behaviors, conditions, or attitudes that foster stereotypes of social roles based on sex. Sexual assault is defined as illegal sexual contact that usually involves force upon a person without consent or is inflicted upon a person who is incapable of giving consent, such as age or physical or mental capacity. After giving these examples and the definitions, the results changed very drastically. Compared to the original results before examples and definitions were given, the number of subjects that faced sexual harassment increased from 2 to 8 people. Sexual assault remained the same, and sexism tripled, going from 3 people to 9 people that have experienced some form of sexism, whether subtle or explicit.
I guess I have been. I was locked in an Uber until I gave the driver my number. He wouldn't let me out of the car, kept the doors locked, and told me I had to give him my number. He told me we should hang out, and when I need another ride, I should call him. I finally made up a fake number just so I could get out of the car.
They excluded me until I started rapping along to Eazy-E. Once I started, they were like, oh shit, she's cool, she can stay. They didn't tell me that I was in a competition for their approval. They literally said, she can stay.
I've assembled this expectation of what I was supposed to do.
I know that wouldn't have happened if it was just one lone guy. This was a group of like 4 guys. I think he was letting me know that he'd hit it if he had the chance. Like, what did he want me to do? Turn around and ask, wanna fuck? What if I did, though? They wouldn't have expected it, and he probably would have said, what the fuck, get out of here. He only whistled because he was with a group of other guys.
Sometimes I wish I was a guy, though. I'd feel a lot safer. I don't feel like safety is an issue in my daily life, but I definitely always look like who is around me and stuff like that. Because it's easier for a girl to get in a sticky situation than a man.
He bit me, forced me to suck his dick. I felt so uncomfortable, and I don't even remember his name. It really made me take a step back. I have been coerced into sex several times. I told him that I didn't want to have sex, and he made me stand up, and he kept feeling me up and told me to just suck it up. I couldn't avoid the situation, so I agreed. He told me to look me in the eye and say, I want to have sex with you.
Males are the equivalent of a bureaucracy.
These quotes reify that this era of gender inequality which we are currently living in is in the throes of a horrendously unbalanced power dynamic between males and females. This inequality has progressed so far south that harassment and assault are barely recognized anymore. This relationship between males and females is not balanced. Rather, it has turned into a dominant, submissive relationship which relies on outright masculinity and a sense of pride to maintain a man's power over a female. As author C.J. Pascoe often talks about, men have a social script of compulsive heterosexuality, or acting boldly and bluntly male in front of other males and in front of females to uphold some imaginary standard of masculinity. In this script, males feel entitled, empowered, and quite frankly, dominant. Compulsive heterosexuality also gives males this bright idea that they need to demean women, objectify them, and have no filter for their words or actions. Males want to be perceived as masculine, but what they don't realize is that masculinity is not concrete, and it is naturally appearing in varying degrees of how it is expressed. They try to prove their dominance and assertion over women by these insidious actions, but also try to out-masculine one another by confabulating far-fetched experiences to validate their personal masculinity. The psychology of the male mind is another factor in this power dynamic. Psychologist of male studies Will Meek describes the psychology and explanation of man's actions and how they have come to be harmful. He says, when men meet the expectation of a culturally preferred gender role, there are benefits that usually include acceptance from other men, success in occupations traditionally held by men, increased social status, self-esteem, access to resources, and opportunities with potential mates. Basically, if a man thinks, feels, looks, and acts like a man should, according to his culture, there are benefits, and these benefits reinforce men to continue with this type of masculinity. This process is called gender role compliance advantage. Beyond psychology, there is also male motivation. Males have a false sense of entitlement, probably something that came about in the primitive times when passing on genes was necessary to grow the community and a lack of a stable civilization was present. But now, that needs to stop, immediately. The male motivation, I believe, is found in compulsive heterosexuality. It is that approval from other males. It is a sex-driven mind. It is bragging rights and fantasy stories to tell. But once again, Here, this underlying theme of dominance, objectification, and masculinity is seen. This motivation has no time to care about the female's thoughts, actions, words, or displays. It is compulsive and it is frightening. Men do not view females as equals. Rather, they are pieces of ass, sex toys, and sluts. But should a woman tell off a male, they soon become a prude, a bitch, and unattractive, or not good enough for the male anymore. Heaven forbid a male's hyper-ego be damaged. Females are scared of males because their actions are harmful and in the past have proved to be threatening. Should a female be uncomfortable, she would more likely endure the trauma that is going to inevitably come, rather than leave a guy and endure the pain and hate that will more than likely be inflicted on her. And so, this is my message. Stop blaming the female for rape culture. Stop blaming females for the way they dress. Stop blaming females for hurting your ego. Stop blaming females. They cower in fear over what might happen to them, but yet they continue to live and accept and repress the spiteful wrongdoings of the male. They have learned to live with it. Critique men. Blame male privilege. Talk about sexual violence. Hold men accountable for their actions. Refuse to stay silent in a society that breeds this culture of violent hypermasculinity.